Where the polar bear was a coconut grove. Totally surreal place. Thousands of coconut trees perfectly planted in a line, and everything underneath is just quiet and silent.
It was the first time that many of these actors had met, and certainly the first time they'd worked together. We all sort of got together and rehearsed the scene. It was fascinating watching these actors sort of meet each other and figure out kind of who they were, not just in terms of who their characters were, but kind of who they were to each other.
So you found a gun on a U.S. Marshal. I believe you did. You knew it was there because you was the one he was taking back to the States.
At that point, we didn't know how it was going to develop. We didn't know what it was, where the character would go. For instance, now we know that the character is romantic, almost heroic in some ways. At that time, it seemed that his contribution that he could make to the group was his technical know-how.
I've sort of allowed the wave of the show to gauge how I figure out Kate and who she is and where she's coming from, because we are left in the dark so often. I don't know for sure exactly how old she is. They won't disclose anything. I don't know anything until we get that script, and that script says it in the script.
It was really hard for us in the beginning if you weren't shooting a lot of scenes, because the storyline hadn't evolved to that yet, and it was really hard. And I didn't shoot my episode until a little over a month ago. So from July until November, I was a lunatic. That can't be a polar bear.
It's a polar bear. Wait a minute. Polar bears don't usually live in the jungle.
Spot on.
I wanted to truly invest in this idea of this weird island of Dr. Moreau, this kind of foreboding sense that the island itself is a character in the show, you know, and it's always looming over your shoulder. I feel like the rules don't apply on this island, that in some way the island is able to emotionally tap into people and just draw emotions out of them that other times they might try and hold in, you know.
Where they are is something that we've talked about, and what the island is something we've talked about and have a very clear definition of in our heads. And, you know, JJ loves to have those very clear, big ideas and then be able to, you know, texture them in whatever way he sees fit. Or the books that they might be reading, or the references in their discussions, you know, those things kind of come out in the moment very often as the thing is being conceived. But they all serve the greater mystery that we have clearly in our heads, and yet want to maintain some artistic freedom in how you illuminate those ideas.
Okay, wide open space. You should check the radio, see if we're good.
We're not going to have any reception here. We're still blocked by the mountain.
Just check the damn radio!
Why just check? We might not have any juice left when we get there.
First day of work, I get there, and we're shooting the biggest scene, you know, dialogue-wise of the entire pilot for my guy. And so I'm like, great, okay, throwing right into the fire, here we go. And I had prepped without an accent. I'm doing the lines, and JJ came up to me about halfway through the day, and he's like, it's good, what you're doing is good, but it sounds like you're trying to speak without an accent. And I was like, yeah, of course I am, you know. Is it working? And he's like, no, you don't speak without an accent. That was before we hired you. You're Southern, let it ride. And that just set me free.
Originally, the polar bear, we really weren't going to see too much of. Sawyer was going to shoot it, and then we would see it laying there. And the effects guys put a bladder in it, so, you know, we sort of see his last breath take, and then he would die. And the issue was, you know, where'd you get the gun? And then JJ wanted the polar bear to chase him, but the polar bear didn't really move, and he wasn't really animatronic, and we talked about bear suits, and well, pretty soon we thought, well, we'll just do high grass, and JJ's going, yeah, we could get tufts of grass coming up, so we've got tufts of grass coming out of air rams as the bear is coming through the high grass.
When they first said they wanted to have a polar bear, they said, can you do a CGI polar bear? And we said, sure we can, you know. But I guess maybe hanging on to the reality rules, JJ did not want to do a CGI polar bear. He wanted to have little snippets and pieces of fur moving through, or legs moving, and they built a puppet. You know, they're saying, well, someone's just going to run through the jungle. And we were just saying, well, who's going to do that? And in the middle of the production meeting, I just found myself raising my hand. And next thing I know, they strapped on polar bear chaps, and we went over to this little dense green area, and I was hopping through the jungle trying to mimic a four-legged run, because all we were going to see was two legs, and I was the polar bear running through the jungle.
And then JJ decided that the bear should, like, attack, so we tried launching him out of an air ramp.
And cut. We're going again real fast. Let's go again right away.
It didn't work.
Kevin Blank said to me, we're going to make the polar bear jump computer graphic shot. I said, there's not going to be, I promise you, there will not be a computer polar bear in this show. And sure enough, there is. Because once we did the jumps of the polar bear, you know, a number of times, which, by the way, as silly as they were, worked fine. But because you can freeze frame things now, they actually aired in the early commercials on ABC. They aired the footage as shot, and you see the polar bear jump. And when you freeze frame it, it is absolutely the dumbest thing you've ever seen. I mean, it is ridiculous. It's a stupid, goofy, Muppet-looking thing. Just like it could not be less scary. I mean, it's embarrassing. So Kevin Blank showed me that someone had not only seen that on TV, but had freeze framed it and posted it on the internet, which made the show laughable before it even aired. And he said, I think we can do better than that. And he actually ended up doing, if you freeze frame the DVD, you can see those few frames of the polar bear jumping, and it looks really scary. And that's because we didn't use that big, fluffy polar bear. It was all Kevin Blank.
My note to the artist, which is John Teska at Eden Effects, was more grass, just a little bit of bear. But it looked so good that I was really compelled to show it to JJ, and he seemed to respond to it. And then we went through different versions of, like, how much bear do we see? Do we want to telegraph what we are really seeing at that moment? Because he wanted the line of "this is a polar bear" to land dramatically, and you don't want to, have several moments of a polar bear leading to that, because that would diminish that moment. And but ultimately, he seemed to buy off on what we were doing.
Of the many outstanding qualities of Kevin Blank, our visual effects supervisor, one of them is spontaneity and the ability to think on his feet. We came up with a shot here today of this blue screen shot that would allow us to composite our characters climbing the mountain into that rock face way over there. And so we're doing it, even though, typically you'd want to spend a lot of time planning this and prepping it. We just thought, that's cool, and we're doing it. And that's what this crew is. It's nutty and incredibly talented.
When we were shooting the pilot, my part of it only took place here, and I got to meet finally the rest of the cast, and we were all there together. And we got here and saw the plane on the beach, and it was just like, oh my God, like this is astounding. Oh, this is really real.
Today we are going to learn how to run in the sand in stilettos, which these are very special stilettos. These could kill a man.
Stop! I'm a lifeguard, I'm licensed.
We had 5 days to shoot the opening sequence on the beach. The plane, though it crashed, was sort of a dying monster, but it was still very much alive.
I had never seen such an elaborate set. It was easy to transport myself to actually being in that situation. I was awestruck by it.
The thing was choreographed so that if you were looking down at the plane, you sort of tracked along each side of the plane until you made a full circle by the time the wing crashed.
It's a real plane that they've made to look like this. Everything was real. Every explosion happened.
On the bottom right-hand corner, I'm the guy that gets thrown back.
The wing, when that dropped, it dropped. We had one go at that.
Move! Get her up! Get her out of there! The wing!
There's engines on fire and people screaming, and there's smoke everywhere and stuff falling and so much stuff happening. You really got to be on your game.
Okay, good. Cut.